stuff all the time, but that's one of those things that on its face to the untrained eye who is walking by sight as opposed to faith, at the first look, it seems like an obstacle. It seems like a problem. But if you can take it and turn it on its head, it can produce results if you know what you're doing. Because internationally, Muslims view the language of Arabic as some kind of heavenly language. It's often insisted upon by Muslim clergy people that any Quranic study, any memorization of the Quran has to be done only in Arabic. It's really a cultural imperialism in which all other languages on the planet are viewed as inferior to Arabic, and any attempt to translate the Arabic into any other tongue will result in a loss of the meaning and the beauty of the original language and text. Now, here's the kicker. Since the vast majority of the Islamic world on every continent speaks languages other than Arabic, many have decided, well, shoot, I don't feel like learning Arabic. You know what I mean? I don't know where the next meal's coming from. And since they won't translate it into my tongue, guess what? If I don't get to know Arabic and it only exists in Arabic, then like dominoes, what happens? They decide not to learn very much of the Quran itself at all. And knowing this is a key when you're engaging in a conversation with a Muslim. I would venture to say, my own educated guess, probably 8 out of 10 Muslims on the planet probably don't have a good, fluid, working knowledge of their own religious reference works, Quran, Hadith, etc. Probably 8 out of 10, which is the overwhelming majority the world over. So the opportunity that presents itself is that if you personally can gain a decent, competent knowledge and understanding of what the Quran and what the Hadith are trying to communicate, you will officially know more about Islam than most Muslims on the planet do about their own religion, and they're in it. And once you're sitting down face to face with a Muslim and they rattle off all the pat, rehearsed, unimpressive, borrowed arguments that the Imam gave them at the Islamic Center, and you shoot them down, bang, 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 because you got to understand, you're trying to present B to these people. A positive presentation of B is one thing, but before that, you sometimes have to destroy the A that they have as a presupposition. So you destroy A before you can present B. You see what I'm saying? Once A has been shaken, then you can introduce B. But if someone's entrenched in A, you see what I'm saying? So part of it is knocking out those arguments, knocking out their, wow, I thought my Imam was the smartest man on the earth. No, he's not. He's borrowing bad arguments from the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, or atheists, usually, if it's here in America. So, but once that Muslim understands, wow, this person knows more of the Quran and the Hadith than I do, this Christian, because their prejudices and their presuppositions and everything they've ever been taught about Christians is you're supposed to be stupid. They're supposed to be able to whip your butt in a debate. Here you are defeating them. Their whole world has been destroyed. They've grown up learning about Santa Claus, and now you're proving Santa Claus doesn't exist. And that's a moment where you can go in, and many awesome opportunities of dialogue and taking the conversation into interesting directions present themselves. That was a heck of a rant. Final question before we get out of here. Oh, and by the way, this also, when you're dealing with, say, one of the religions that come out of the Black Muslim movement, you're going to occasionally run into a person here or there who vaguely knows some scattered Arabic phrases or some verses or some Islamic sayings or whatever. But if you know what's going on in the surah, which contains the verse or the ayat that they're quoting, and odds are that they don't, then you're going to be able to demonstrate how they're actually being un-Islamic in their interpretation of the Quran. See, if Middle Eastern Islam out of Mecca and Medina teaches A, but their Farrakhanism is teaching B, and you know more of the Quran than they do, they're going to be spent. And at this point, their only defense left, if they're in the black Muslim movement, if you're white, they're going to call you a racist. If you're black, they're going to call you an Uncle Tom. Okay? They might call you a hypocrite, or they might start screaming. The idea is if I shout loud enough to drown out your voice, then I've automatically won. So if I scream 1 + 1 = 11 and I'm louder than you, does 1 + 1 become 11 because I'm louder? No. It just means I know how to scream a lie very loud. You know what I mean? But once somebody in an academic exchange of ideas, a rational exchange of ideas, has to resort to childlike behavior because they're losing, like a desperate football team, and there's 2 minutes left and they have no chance of winning, how they start fighting sometimes. You see that at the end of a sports contest. Once they get to that stage, you can know that you've pretty much caused such a panic in that person that the debate is finished. The discussion's over. You have won. And anything that is said after that is not going to be unto edification, and they're making a fool out of themselves. And do not pursue a fool according to his folly. I think we can edit these last 6 minutes out of the final broadcast, or at least a great majority of them, because I went down rabbit holes. Last question of the evening. And yeah, if your last name is -L or -Bay, that is -EL or -BEY, I know you're in the Moorish Science Temple. You might as well be a man and come out and claim it. But this person's not hostile. It seems like they're literally trying to learn. Like maybe they're confused about something, as though asking this Christian radio guy is going to help them grow in their Moorish Science Temple faith. That sure ain't what I'm about to do to you, young man. But it's good that people, and good old Chicago, I love Chicago. I have a love-hate relationship with that town, with that city. I love the place and hate it at the same time. But so here's the deal. We're talking about the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple. And you got to understand, if you enter into a discussion with a member of any of the branches of the Moorish Science Temple, and yes, I said branches in the plural on purpose, as in within the Moorish Science Temple philosophy, there's more than one school of thought. Eventually, you're going to run into this Quran, and they spell it the American way, Koran. Let me just tell you, that's not the Quran that regular Muslims would read. This is a gimmick that was developed by the founder of the Moorish Science Temple, Timothy Drew. Later, he went on to call himself the Noble Timothy Drew Ali. So he took what we have now since discovered is nothing more than the Aquarian Gospel by Levi Dowling. Who was Levi Dowling? In the 1800s, he was a witch. He was a sorcerer. Today, following the science of parapsychology that has changed the terminology, we don't call them a witch or a sorcerer anymore. We now call them a psychic or a medium because it makes it sound more clean. So the name might have changed, but the game remains the same. Different shell, but same nut. It's just a fresh coat of paint on ancient occultic satanic arts. I hate to say it. But the Aquarian Gospel was written by Levi Dowling, and it was attempting to communicate essentially what I would call Satanism. It's a New Age, spiritualistic, Gnostic work. But since from the 1800s, obviously, it's from a time gone by, but you can find it in any library. Now, he took that book, he added a few sentences to it, but then he took his Aquarian Gospel by Levi Dowling, plus a few sentences that he added, this revision, this mutant book, and he passed it off as a revelation from God, called it the Holy Quran. Again, Koran. It's important. That's the English way of spelling Quran, which I always spell a Qur''A''N. But the joke is on anybody who thinks that this has any connection to Islam whatsoever. It's like grape nuts. Grape nuts is a cereal that is composed of neither grapes nor nuts, you see. It's made up of two things that have nothing to do with it. It's not grapes, it's not nuts, it's a cereal. This is neither holy nor a Quran. It's occultic, pagan, sorcerer, witchcraft type of stuff. If you've ever read the Aquarian Gospel by Levi Dowling, and I have, this is the person from whom Timothy Drew Ali stole a lot of his crap, you're not surprised to see that its author was clearly, you can tell by the words he uses, he was into occultism, he was into witchcraft. And thus, since Timothy Drew Ali is learning from a dude who's into occultism, witchcraft, Timothy Drew Ali's main teaching had to do with reincarnation. Surprise, as in I'm the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Now, how did he come across that? In his early life, Timothy Drew traveled with the carnival, okay? So you watch Dumbo, for example, or whatever. You had the carnival that traveled by horseback or in a train or whatever, go from town to town, and you'd have the carts, you know what I mean? Now, he learned of his so-called messiahship, his so-called reincarnation of Jesus Christ through a witch, a sorcerer, as again today we would call it a fortune teller, tarot card reader, psychic. Multiple ways of referring to the same office, right? But that person who was involved in the traveling circus, the traveling carnival, probably in the middle of a seance, looking into a crystal ball. Point is, the fortune teller is the one who revealed to Timothy Drew, did you know you're really the reincarnation of Jesus Christ? Okay. So now there's no known branch of Islam outside of the Moorish Science Temple that looks at this so-called Quran as coming from Allah, the pagan moon deity of Muhammad's Quraysh tribe, Al-Ilah. They look at it, he revealed the recitation, like a game of telephone, Allah to Jibril to Muhammad to the scribes, you know, this long line of stuff here. But this did not come in the same way, and it's not the Quran. The fact that he passes it off with that name, it's terrible. It's like if I took, what is that book with the vampires and the werewolves, the Twilight series? I threw a few sentences together and I said, hey everyone, this is the Bible. Anyone who followed me would be very stupid and would deserve whatever happens to them. And so I tell you, now that you know this information, if you follow Timothy Drew Ali, or whoever his spiritual great-grandbabies are, that are on the street today, if you follow them with the knowledge of the fact that what they're teaching you is garbage, then you're very stupid and you deserve whatever happens to you. Like I said, the global Islamic community does not recognize this so-called Quran as coming from the Allah of Islam. The Moorish Science Temple is alone on the earth in even caring that this volume exists. Now, an interesting bonus piece of trivia I want to give you here before we close. Side note, Timothy Drew Ali had a white pupil in his temple. His name was Wali Dodd Ford, or David Ford L, as he called himself, because Timothy Drew threw the L at the end, -EL. And why is that important? Because if I control your name, I control your identity. And if I can control your identity, then I control who you are. Every false religion involves changing your name. If there's a cult leader that says change your name, you've got a problem. Especially if they get to pick the name, because it's a way of conquering you. All right? Down through history, anytime someone was a captured, enslaved person, they take away your identity and your connection to who you were before you became a part of that, and give you something else. And so Timothy Drew Ali obviously gave David Ford, or Wali Dodd Ford, this L. He was a white dude. Like I said, his birth name was Wali Dodd Ford. Later on, David Ford L would change his name to Wallace Farad Muhammad, and he would break away from Timothy Drew Ali and start his own group. He'd keep some of Timothy Drew Ali's teachings. He'd get rid of others. He added some things in, made it his own. But the interesting thing was this second branch of the Moorish Science Temple was called the Lost Found Nation of Islam. So in the very beginning, Farad's claim that he was the reincarnation of Timothy Drew Ali. It wasn't until Elijah Muhammad took over that he said Wallace Farad Muhammad was Allah incarnate. See, Wallace Farad Muhammad himself never claimed that about himself. He claimed he was the reincarnation of Timothy Drew, but Timothy Drew claimed that he was the reincarnation of Jesus. So what was Wallace Farad Muhammad teaching except I'm the reincarnation of Jesus? Although he was whiter than I am, but they said, oh, he's just he's from Mecca, you know. But Farad's story later evolved. He claimed that he was the God of Islam. He was Allah incarnate. And yet he found a drunk in the gutter in need of a break, Elijah Poole, felt sorry for him, took him under his wing, and from there Elijah Poole took over. The rest is history. But so all of this is basically, if you think about the whole thing chronologically, who's the one responsible for starting the Black Muslim movement? Louis Farrakhan today claims to be the successor of Elijah Muhammad, even though Elijah Muhammad is on record in print stating multiple times there would be no successor. Farrakhan says Elijah Muhammad is a liar because I'm the successor. So Farrakhan is dependent on Elijah Muhammad for his authority. But Elijah Muhammad claimed to be the successor of Wallace Farad Muhammad. Wallace Farad Muhammad claimed to be the reincarnation of Timothy Drew Ali. Timothy Drew Ali claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Timothy Drew Ali learned of his alleged reincarnation of Christ status from a witch, a sorcerer, a medium, a psychic, a fortune teller, employed by a traveling circus in a tent in front of a crystal ball, probably. So witchcraft, occultism, necromancy, etc. have their roots in Satanism. Thus, if you follow the train ride from the crystal ball to the sorcerer, to Timothy Drew, to Wally Dodd Ford, to Elijah, to Louis, you can see that the logical end conclusion is that Satan started the Nation of Islam, and Satan started all of the religions which make up the Black Muslim movement in America.